All right, I think we'll get started. My name is Ross Yelsey. I'm with the Office of Admission and Financial Aid at Columbia Journalism School. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in today to learn more about two of our really amazing degree programs that are at the intersection of computation and journalism. Those are the MS in Data Journalism and the Dual MS in Computer Science and Journalism. So we'll talk about both those programs and what they have to offer, and kind of what kind of student they might be best suited for. So we'll go over that. And in case you're thinking about either program or any of the other programs we offer at the school, just keep in mind that our deadline to apply for this current cycle is going to be December 15th for any of our programs. So just keep that in mind. You have about 2 months, a little over that right now, to put together an application. So this is a great chance to hear more about the programs from our faculty and alums to get a better sense on what would be the right fit for you. And if you have questions about other things, you're always, very welcome to reach out to us at apply.journalism@columbia.edu for any admissions related questions. And we'll have some more conversations soon about our financial aid opportunities. So if people have those questions, hold on to those, and we'll have more sessions coming up soon. Another cool thing about applying this cycle is that the application fee does not exist, so there's no fee to apply. So people should feel very welcome to put in an app if you're really feeling like you have a potential future in one of our programs that you'd like to pursue. I would say just go for that. So that's a really great thing about this cycle. But to kind of get our conversation underway, I'd like to welcome Professor Jonathan Soma, who's the director of the MS in Data Journalism program, Professor Dhrumil Mehta, who's a core faculty member in the data program as well as in the dual MS in Computer Science and Journalism, and an alumnus of the MS in Data Journalism program, Daryl Liao, and alumna of the dual MS in Journalism and Computer Science, Surabhi Sharma. Thank you all for joining us. So I think we'll start with the MS in data journalism, and I'll ask Soma, what is data journalism, and what is this degree really designed to do for people?
Yeah, so I think there's two different ways I can approach what is data journalism. And there's the most simplistic way, in which I say it is literally anything where you touch a computer when you are doing journalism, right? So you have your core writing, your core reporting. And data journalism is any situation where maybe you're analyzing data, maybe you're grabbing content from the internet to analyze anything that involves computational work, data visualization, things like that. But at the grander scale, I like to think of it as journalism that instead of just working on something that's kind of small scale, talking to a few people, reading a few documents, doing a little bit of research, it is something that is scaled up by being able to automate processes, by being able to write code. You're able to, instead of analyze one document, analyze 1 million documents, analyze every piece of legislation released in the country over the course of a year instead of just a couple that are introduced at your city council meeting. Um, this kind of data journalism, it's important for us to prepare through a program like this because I'm not sure if people in the audience have ever tried to learn to code before, but it is pretty much the worst experience that exists. It is rarely focused for journalism. It is rarely practical. It is rarely something that is actually giving you the tools that you need to succeed in such a specific world. Data journalism covers everything from data visualization to investigative work to geographic things, building maps, AI, all of this. And it is very, very difficult to kind of put all of these pieces together without having the structure of a program and support of kind of knowledgeable staff and other folks that are going through the program with you.
Mhm. Thanks, Soma. And Drew Mill, for people who are hearing about the data program and now want to know a bit about this dual program, can you tell us a bit about how the dual computer science and journalism program works and how that differs in ways from the data journalism program?
Yeah, so the dual degree program is a really exciting program that gets you 2 degrees. So you're here for 2 years, but you get an MS in journalism and you also get an MS in computer science. It's one of the few dual degree programs we have that is truly integrated. So you work in the journalism school, you work in the CS school, but your thesis is some combination of those two things. And then we have a class that's specifically sort of for frontiers of computational journalism, where we sort of overlap the two. Um, the thing with this program, though, is you need to know how to code already. In order to be admitted to the program, you have to independently get into the journalism school and also into the master's program at a competitive university in computer science. So you ideally need either a bachelor's in computer science or something related, or what we call equivalent industry experience. So you've worked as a software developer, a data scientist, something like that in the past, and then you sort of come here to bridge the two. I think the difference is it is a much the data program is very guided, and the dual degree program is very choose your own adventure. Find the corner of these two fields where you want to push the envelope, do things that have never been done before, and then we will help you, like enable you to do that.
Hmm. Thanks. And Soma, going back to the data program, for people who are listening to this now or might watch the recording later and are thinking, like, am I suitable for this program? What do you need to know in order to maybe be admissible to this program? And maybe what should your goals be in terms of what you'd like to get out of a degree here?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is difficult about data journalism, if you're not immersed in the world, is knowing exactly kind of what you can do with data journalism. And it's kind of easier to talk about from the direction of what you need coming in, and that is zero. You need, unlike the dual program, the data journalism MS, you do not need computational experience coming in. We start you from zero. We push you very, very throughout the program in order to become an excellent, not necessarily developer, but an excellent programmer who can execute on all sorts of large scale and impressive data work in journalism, but you do not need to learn how to code coming in. Apologies if I'm kind of choppy. I'm tethering. I'm in Japan doing some teaching here for data journalism. Um, for people coming in, having some journalism experience, having drive to tell stories, things like that is useful. But mostly what intimidates people is the technical side. And so if you are willing to kind of dedicate yourself to a program for a full calendar year, it's a 12-month program, 3 semesters long. You do not need any coding experience coming in. We give you all of that from square one.
Great, thanks, Soma, and thanks for staying up so late. I know you're in a very different time zone than us. But Drumil, I was going to ask you. Already talked about kind of what you need to have in terms of computer science background for the dual program. What would you say people's maybe goals should be about what they might want to get out of that? You say it's a very interesting, like choose your own adventure experience. But overall, what kind of trajectory might you be thinking you might want to go on to do this program?
Yeah, it is. So when I say choose your own adventure, our graduates go on to do all kinds of things. And so we have students so I will say, first of all, you come out with a degree in journalism, also a degree in computer science. So like that is extremely valuable in the marketplace. There's a lot of things you can do with a degree in computer science. Our graduates have done everything from go on to work at newsrooms and software engineering roles where maybe they're building new AI pipelines, which is what a lot of our recent graduates are out there, like building AI pipelines. Um, but like that sort of divide between engineer and journalist is really starting to dissolve now. Like people in newsrooms who are building pipelines also have bylines. They're also calling sources. They're also writing. And so depending on which newsroom you sort of land in, you may end up in an editorial role as well. We also have a graduate who is a political reporter at Politico who just happens to be extremely technical and knows a lot of code and like can do all kinds of cool things that other political reporters can't necessarily do. We've had students go into academia. We've had students write papers as part of their thesis, go on to PhDs. One's actually doing a PhD in computer science here at Columbia. And so there is a wide range of goals that you can have. You can also come with a specific interest. So we had a student who came with an interest in VR AR. Her thesis advisor, we didn't have that in-house, so we hired the former head of XR at Yahoo News to be her thesis advisor. He came in and helped her sort of tell stories in VR as part of her thesis. We have another student working on like graphics right now with a professor in the CS school, sort of 3D reconstruction stuff. So really students come with their own interests, and then we really help them take that to the next level.
Gotcha. And let's turn the conversation now over to our alums. We'll start with Daryl. Daryl, can you tell us a bit about what you were doing before you came to Columbia and how you kind of decided that the MS in data journalism was the right program to pursue?
Yeah. So I was a video journalist in Singapore before I moved to the States. I was doing that for about 3 years, and like so I had that journalism background going in. But I think like I had known about the data journalism program for a while. And I reached a point where like I feel like I want to learn more, and I feel like data journalism was at that time becoming a lot bigger in the industry. Um, and had like what Soma said, you don't really need coding background. Everything you kind of learn from scratch. So I think through the program of like 1 year, I really did learn how to like execute projects and things by combining data, analyzing data, and making them into stories. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And Serbia, how about you? What were you doing before Columbia? How did you decide that this dual program in computer science and journalism was what you wanted to do in grad school?
Yeah, so before I started at Columbia, I just completed my undergrad in computer science, and I was working on internships involving software engineering work. And I had already planned that I wanted to do a master's degree, but I wasn't really sure where I would go, what program I would choose. And I was interested in writing, and I wanted to study journalism. So I did like one simple Google search, MS program, computer science and journalism, and this program popped up. And then I did my own research, attended the webinar, talked to the alumni who already did the program. And I realized that this is such a flexible program. Like I could go in journalism, I could do computer science. And I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. And I applied.
Excellent. And great. And I'm sure people watching now are curious kind of what these programs look like in terms of like the month to month, semester to semester kind of layout. And we're going to share some visualizations just for a few minutes, go over them kind of in a kind of an overview of kind of how it would look to be a student in these programs. We'll start with the data program. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. And then Soma, if you wanted to tell us just a little bit about, maybe not in granular detail, but a bit of just the overall structure of the data degree and how it kind of unfolds over the 3 semesters.
Yeah, so since folks are coming in with zero experience most of the time in coding and varied amounts of experience in journalism, the first semester, so the fall semester, is all of your fundamentals. You are taking reporting one, you are taking reporting two, you're learning about talking to people, calling sources, writing pieces. At the same time, in the second half of the fall, you move into the computational aspects, foundations, which is the course that I teach for Intro to Python, and data databases. These are both core classes that teach you computational skills, Python, wrangling data, scraping websites, a little bit of building data visualizations, things like that. Then you move into the next semester, the second semester, and you take those fundamental skills and you actually start to put them into practice. So you have writing with data, in which you are kind of learning how to join those skills of writing with the data analysis skills. Data Studio, which is computation and innovation one, where you're building weekly projects or bi-weekly or every 3 weeks, you're building a new project, a start to finish data visualization project. You write a story, analyze a data set, build some visuals. Algorithms, which Dhrumil teaches, and that is a class mostly statistical analysis. If you have a lot of data, how do you end up making sense of it? And also that semester you are taking an elective in the J school, usually something that is focused on, let's say, a certain beat, healthcare reporting, investigative reporting, or a certain style of production. So maybe something like video or podcasting. Then your final semester, you bring it up with your capstone master's project, which you work on for maybe about 5 or 6 months. It's one very long-term project. Then you have 2 courses that are focused on kind of data visualization, data investigations, and GIS. So visualization and mapping, geographic analysis. So you're kind of every semester building up a little bit higher, taking on more ambitious projects, bigger projects, wider projects, more personal projects. And by the end, you know how to do pretty much everything.
Pretty cool. And one thing to note about this program, like our other MS programs here, is that the grading is pass fail. So how does that kind of affect how people can approach this sometimes challenging, new kind of set of skills to gain?
Absolutely. So this is something that some people come here and they say, I do not understand how pass fail works. I've been driven by grades my entire life. But what it really allows you to do is when you're in a program that is pushing you so hard in so many different directions, you can pick what resonates with you. And so, for example, I teach Data Studio in the second semester where you're making a lot of projects. these projects are using skills that you just learned the previous semester or are currently learning in that semester. And it is difficult to tell yourself that you're able to reach to build something, more elegant, fancier, more audacious. And if you have the comfort of knowing that everything is pass fail, you don't have to worry about the difference between 80, 85, 90, 95, 97, 100. You say, if I am trying my best, if I am learning something, if I am producing a project, even if in the end it's not what I hoped it would be, I'm still able to, wrangle my way to the end. So it is very comforting in terms of your success and your ability to experiment during the course of the program.
Great. And Daryl, as you look at this visualization and think back on your time here, are there particular courses or projects that were particular highlights in terms of the curriculum for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think like what Soma mentioned, data computation and innovation one, which is Data Studio, was probably like one of the more enjoyable slash stressful classes of the whole program. Because basically every 2 weeks, we had a deadline to produce a story, and then every different story we had to incorporate a new skill that Soma would teach. Uh, and it would be like a semi-fleshed out story where like you had to do the data analysis, you had to do the graphics for it, but you also had to do the reporting for it, talking to sources and stuff like that. Uh, and I guess like it was a good taster of like the newsroom, right? Because like you usually would have to work on deadline and you had to produce stories quickly. But also I guess like I enjoyed it because like it was fun. I had all these ideas in my ideas bank, and it was fun to just put them into paper onto paper and like creating something out of it. Um, yeah, so like that was something I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Great. And Soma mentioned that there's this class in the spring, the 15-week seminar and production class, where everyone gets a kind of a choice of a lot of different subjects or mediums. What did you choose, and what was that like?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that class too. So like I ended up taking a writing class, a more traditional journalism class, but it was called the Journalism of Ideas. He was a great professor too, and it was like more long form, sort of like thinking about less about like news, but more about topics specifically. I have a background in like making explainer videos, so that kind of like stood out to me too. Um, and I think it ties in quite well also with data. And I think it also helped that the professor kind of liked um data kind of journalism. Because you kind of data journalism is a bit more like longer, more like you're going deep into things versus like surface, right? So it's like how can you explore ideas with like data? For me, I think in the end, I didn't do its data specific story. I didn't cover data specific stories, but it definitely helped me like report and do think about like magazine journalism and how we write for that and stuff. Yeah.
Great. And one last question about the master's project. That's, an amazing topic. We could probably talk for, half an hour about everyone's master's project if we took all that time. But in general, what did you decide to kind of focus on for your project, and what kind of data were you looking at?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, very fun and stressful
Hmm.
period of time. Um, I decided to analyze the TikTok accent. So out of just hyperfixations or like just me scrolling on TikTok too much, noticed that like people on TikTok sometimes speak pretty differently, specifically like Amazon unboxing TikTokers, which is on my FYP for some reason. Um, and I decided to try and quantify, show what their accent looks like and compare how their accent is with like, well, like compared with other TikTokers. So I honed in on one specific features of like their accent, which is like the up talk. So like kind of like the Valley Girl, kind of like, oh my God, kind of thing. And I managed to show that Amazon TikTokers spoke with that up talk a lot more, like statistically significantly more than every other TikToker that I compare to. Yes. Involved a lot of scraping, a lot of like learning, teaching myself linguistics and phonetic and well, accent analysis, and then putting it all together on like an interactive page. It was fun. It was just a very long, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. So great. We'll turn over now to Dhrumil to talk a little bit about the dual curriculum, since people are curious maybe how you get this training in both these different aspects of Columbia over these 2 years. Could you talk maybe kind of in kind of big picture detail of how the curriculum works for this program?
Yeah, so the dual degree is 2 degrees, and so to that end, you take classes in the the MS journalism, and classes over at the computer science department. Some semesters are much more computer science heavy, so you'll see that the spring semester of the first year has 4 Cs classes, whereas other semesters you'll take one class in CS, and the rest of it would be here in the journalism school. You also have a summer in between the two, so oftentimes people will use that to suppose you are just getting into news, maybe explore different roles within news, or go off and get an internship in tech to kind of help fund the next semester. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that summer as well. And then you'll notice there's a class in the fall semester of the second year called Frontiers of Computational Journalism. And that is the class that really brings journalism. We should fix
Yeah,
that. But that is the class that bridges these two, right? So in that class last year, we have a computational journalist who worked at the Baltimore Banner, who is a statistician. He taught students how to use generalized linear models, so not the kinds of things you may have encountered in like interest statistics classes, the kind of model that's used in like PhD level statistics classes. But he was using that to do reporting on the opioid epidemic in Baltimore, which ultimately published in the New York Times and just won a Pulitzer Prize. And he taught students how to use those modeling techniques to then go and be able to ask particularly pointed questions to the mayor of Baltimore, for instance, as he was doing that. So he's teaching that. Meanwhile, students are also like, you'll have exposure to things at the cutting edge of these two disciplines. Meanwhile, you will also be exploring your own cutting edge, right? So like each student has some project that they're working on as they go along. And then your master's thesis is really your place to bring everything that you're learning together and really throw all your passion there. Last thing I want to add is just the pass-fail situation looks different in the dual degree program. I think that academia allows you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do on the job. I had a lot of ideas at my previous job as a journalist at 538. The editors are like, we cannot lose a core part of our elections team for 6 months to go off and work on a project that may or may not pan out. Like, sorry, and I don't know what the business model is here. Like, those kinds of things you can bring to journalism school, and you can do in this pass-fail context, take big, huge swings at things that like have high likelihoods of failure, or there's just a lot more failure tolerance when you're in school, because you still learn a lot along the way. So it's a great place to be able to bring highly experimental ideas that nobody else has done before and find out if they're doable.
Great, thanks, Dhrumil. And Serbi, like I asked Daryl, could you look at this visualization with us and say, were there particular classes or projects that stand out as you think back on the curriculum you went through?
Yeah, I would mention the same course that Dhrumil just mentioned. It was like the highlight of the program for me. Nick and Dhrumil were teaching that, and we learned like how to apply different statistical techniques to find the data stories. It was amazing. We had 2 projects during the class, but I mean, it's so flexible that if you have one project that you really want to work on throughout the class, you can talk to them and do that. It was great, and I learned a lot in that class, and then I eventually also applied all those things in my master's project. So I think this is like a great course, and yeah, I mean, and wonderful peers and everything. Like people are just so helpful. Like I was a little confused in the starting with the statistical techniques, like how we're going to combine these two. But throughout the class, like people were so helpful, and I worked on 2 projects. They really taught me a lot. I also had to talk to people to know more, to get more context and everything. So yeah, it was really a great learning experience.
Great. And Daryl told us a bit about his master's project. What did you do in terms of like the kind of subject topic kind of thing you wanted to do with that opportunity here?
Yeah, so I worked on analyzing multilingual data. In India, we have like various languages. So I worked on seeing how a particular topic is covered in different regions, so in different languages. I created the embeddings of the news headlines, and then I was visualizing them, like uh, how they trend over a period of time. I'm still working on it with Dhrumil, like expanding it more, making it more automated and like for large scale data. So yeah.
Mhm. Great, thank you. I'm gonna end those visualizations for a bit and ask a little bit about what people do after they finish the program. Soma, this program's been around about almost not quite 10 years yet, but in the years that it's been around the MS in data journalism, what have kind of graduates gone on to do with the skill set that they build in these 3 semesters? Oh, maybe Soma maybe has
So
frozen.
no, I have
Oh,
unfrozen. I'm pulling down my video though because I think this will be a little bit more effective. One of the interesting things about the data program is
okay, maybe we lost him again for a second. Oh,
for the Washington Post. So they're building interactives. They are building, big data visualizations. They could end up at an investigative outfit like the Marshall Project, doing data wrangling.
hmm. Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of a lag because of the Tokyo connection here. So maybe we'll ask Drumil a little bit about. Oh,
Business or specifically reporting on, let's say, cotton prices or something like that. It really does run the gamut of being at local news, of being at national news, of being, international reporter, something in the U.S.
mhm. All right. Cool. Thanks so much. Drumil, maybe you talked about.
Opening up a
Yeah.
spreadsheet or two.
Cool. Thanks. Drumil, you mentioned kind of some of the trajectories earlier, but more specifically, kind of where people have been landing with the dual degree training.
Yeah, so the dual degree training is really interesting because you now have this dual skill set. And like I said before, some students go on to get a PhD, some students work at the sort of most innovative corners of news. We have a lot of connections with kind of the most innovative corners of computational journalism. We have a student who went on and worked at the elections statistics team at the Washington Post, for instance. He's back here at Columbia now, innovating at the Brown Institute. We have students who have gone on to purely editorial roles, like Mohar, who's at the Politico, who's doing just a political reporter with a deep computational skill set. We've had students go on to be tech reporters, reporting on things like cryptocurrency or doing sort of investigations of illegal dark web marketplaces and things like that. And then we have students who go on to tech companies as well. So for instance, if you're building out the news product at Amazon, or hey Alexa, tell me about today's news, there's a bunch of editorial decisions built into that, right? And so students go on to work at tech companies, oftentimes on their news product teams. I would add also that like some students sort of oscillate between tech and news, in the sense that when they graduate, they're out at a tech company, and 2 years later I call them and they're on the elections team at AP. So, and then every election season they're in a newsroom and then they're back in tech. So we have a lot of different sort of trajectories coming out of this program.
Very cool. And Daryl, can you tell us a bit about what you've done since you finished the degree? I know you've worked at a couple organizations. Can you tell us a bit about kind of what the work is that you've been doing with your training now?
Yeah, so right after graduation, I was at the BBC. That was more of a traditional digital video role. So like I was kind of making video explainers for their website. But I was lucky where like my editor there liked data journalism and liked like exploring how we can like do like data-driven stories. So I was given a lot of opportunity to just kind of like play around with like data sets, find story ideas from the data, and make them into like explainer videos. So at my time there, I did a story about like snow in New York. So fun fact, it actually does not snow that much in New York. That's a myth. Statistically, it actually fluctuates a lot. It doesn't that white Christmas snow actually is more pop culture than like reality. Um, And right now, right now I'm in San Francisco. I'm at the Hearst Dev Hub. So that's more of a traditional data journalism role. I am a fellow here where I'm like helping. So the Dev Hub team kind of works with the local markets that Hearst owns across the country. So San Francisco, Texas, Connecticut, Albany. And the Dev Hub team kind of collaborates with these papers to build tools, build like data pipelines, AI pipelines. And for me, my particular role is like working with these papers to come up with graphic stories, helping them do the analysis and producing them for their localized markets or translating the stories across the different markets. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Serbi, what have you been doing since you finished the dual degree, and how has your kind of skill set that you built there been helpful in what you do now?
Yeah, so I joined Goldman Sachs after graduating. I'm in the GenAI and DocAI research team. I'm working on the LLM infrastructure there, integrating different features like model context protocol and all in their internal LLM. As for the courses, I think all the courses that I took in Columbia, specifically machine learning and deep learning ones, helped me with this role currently. It really helped me understanding how these models work and how to like improve them. And like if we think apart from the technical side, I also learned how to think critically about the ethical and human implications of these AI systems. So I think that skill also is really helping me now that I'm working on these models. So yeah.
Great. And Dhrumil, we mentioned a couple names, the Tao Center earlier, and there's also the Brown Institute for Media Innovation, which is these two great centers and institutes right in the Pulitzer Hall, second floor, basically. Could you tell people a bit about what they offer students, whether they're in these programs or just anyone in the school?
Yeah, so the Tau Center is I'm the deputy director of Tau Center. Mark Hansen, who's a statistician, he is also a journalism professor, which is a rare combination. A statistician is a journalism professor, but he runs the Brown Institute. And we're based here in Pulitzer Hall, just outside my office is where there's like a big open space where students can sit and gather and work on stuff. The Tau Center generally produces research about the news media ecosystem. So we have a beat that we call pink slime journalism, for instance, which is things that look like journalism but are not. So as local newspapers all over the country close and there's like all this AI slop that's being produced that looks like newspapers but is not newspapers, we try to track that and see the influence that it's having on the media ecosystem. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to get involved in research projects like that, especially if you're in the data program, you've got a little bit of coding skills now, you could get involved with one of those projects. We hire fellows out of both programs as well. So one of the students who was in the data program last year is now a computational fellow at the Tau Center, where he's reporting on pink slime journalism, but from a computational perspective. So he's building these big databases with scrapers where he's collecting all the AI slop, analyzing it, but then also doing follow the money kind of reporting, figuring out who's behind these networks, exposing them, that sort of thing. The Brown Institute is a lot of they do a lot of building stuff, and so they have a sort of signature program every year called the Magic Grant. They give away about $1 million in funding. Students from the Brown Institute is a collaboration between Columbia Journalism and Stanford Engineering. So if you have a team from Columbia Journalism, you can compete for up to $150,000 in funding, which has launched a lot of really interesting projects and initiatives. They give that to primarily students, but faculty also. There's like faculty teams as well. So I'm one of the grantees from this year. And if you collaborate with the Stanford folks, you might be eligible for up to 300 grand in funding. So there's just this big sort of competition for innovation in journalism, and if you do have a great idea, it might get funded, and you can sort of continue on with it. So both institutes are really open to students. We have an AI club every other week. If you have an AI idea, somebody from one of these institutes can sort of jump on and help you make that a reality. So there's just this really nice collaborative sort of space for students to come either in a formal capacity or in an informal capacity and really absorb everything the school has to offer.
Thanks. And Daryl and Serbi, are there any times you took advantage of the resources at either the Tao Center or Brown Institute you could tell us about?
Yeah, like I think they both organize a lot of events, interesting events. So a lot of talks, bringing like industry experts and like practitioners coming in to talk about what they do. I think it was like very interesting to learn and like see from a more practical perspective. I also attended like a few like hackathons from the Brown Institute, where similarly they brought in like industry experts who like gave prompts. So I think one of them at that time, well, it wasn't that long ago, but feels a long time ago, where like ChatGPT was getting popular and the newsrooms were starting to think about how to integrate them. And one of the hackathon prompts was like, okay, can we use like how do we use LLMs to improve newsroom workflows? And that's one of the hackathons that I helped with. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say I've met some incredible people there. They are working on some really cool projects, and just talking to them, just asking them how they are implementing things, and that only makes you learn so much. And yeah, I've also had a great experience there, and it doesn't it's not like that you will not have access to resources once you graduate. I'm still working with Dhrumil. I still talk to people over there, and they're incredibly helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of students take big swings at projects and then after graduation look into publishing them or try to get it, out the door.
Mhm.
And we help with
And
that.
since I have Daryl and Serby here, I always try to ask this question when we have alumni in our different program webinars is, can you just talk a little bit what the student community is like here? Because we talk a lot about these curriculums and the programs and the projects, which are amazing. But like, what can you kind of say about what it's like to be a student kind of day to day with the community that's in this building?
I can take that first. So I think it's really diverse. People are from different backgrounds. They're all very welcoming. When I came to journalism school, I had zero experience in journalism, so I was really scared that people are coming here with at least some sort of experience. How will I catch up with them, and how I'll go through the classes? But everyone was really helpful. Professors, students, everyone just is always there to help you. So I think I find it like really a collaborative environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, echoing Serbi, I think fully agree with that. I think professors have always been super nice. I still, 2 years after graduation, I will still text Soma and Drumil about, hi, I'm working on this. Can I bother you? I think, yeah, the school itself is also not big. So like in terms of like number of students, they're always around. You can kind of see them. A lot of people like to work in the Brown Institute, so that's kind of became like a de facto place where like you can drop in and like meet people and like work together and stuff like that. So that has been really nice too.
Great. Let's see. I was going to ask a couple questions I'm sure people have on their mind if they're thinking of applying. Maybe I'll direct this first to Soma about the MS in Data Journalism program in terms of what people, who are on admissions committees might be looking for in a strong candidate for this kind of program, the data journalism program.
Yeah, probably the best thing you can do is provide some sort of idea. Always on stable internet. The best thing we can get is a desire to tell stories and understand that what you are getting into is it's a heavy lift to learn how to code, to learn how to do data visualization, to know how to do all of this. So we're really looking for passion. We are not looking for a background in computation. A lot of folks aren't even necessarily that familiar with all of the aspects of data journalism. But the more you know, the better, of course. But we're really just looking for drive to know that you are someone who will put in the effort over those 12 months of very intensive learning experience.
Thanks. And Dhrumil, likewise for the dual degree, we already mentioned you have to have some background in CS to kind of get into this at the grad level, but what else kind of will you look for in an application to the dual program?
Yeah, I think even just an interest, like a sort of stated interest in journalism and a mature interest in journalism, if you worked on your school paper, or even if you have like a good reason why you want to get into this field, that's usually sufficient on the journalism side. We just want to hear genuinely what your interest in the field is. And if you've done anything journalism adjacent before, tell us about that. On the CS side, you do need either a bachelor's in a computational field like journalism or equivalent work experience. So you need to have worked in as a software engineer or as a data scientist or something along those lines. If you don't know how to code at all, I would say just apply for the data program. If you do know how to code, you're kind of wondering, like, am I on the cusp? You can always contact me, or you can apply for the dual degree program, and we can flag your application if we think it's better for the data program. We can say, hey, maybe be considered for the data program. So if you're on the cusp, or you're just not sure if your previous work experience counts as the equivalent of a computational bachelor's, feel free to reach out and I can advise you more on that.
Great. And for Daryl and Serby, do you have any advice for people who are thinking about going to grad school in this type of program in terms of putting together an application or just what to kind of think about as you're potentially exploring this option?
I think kind of know what you want to learn out of it. I think, um, yeah, I mean, grad school in general is a big commitment, and like, I guess like the job market is the job market. It is what it is. So like aiming for that sometimes is not the best approach. But I feel like learn yeah, thinking about like what are the skills you want to learn, what kind of stories you want to do, what do you want to explore in that year, and shaping that in your application is helpful or has been helpful and was helpful for me, I would say. Yeah.
Mhm. And Serby, what would you say?
I would say this specifically for dual degree program, it can be a little intense, but at the same time, it's very rewarding at the end, and it's also quite flexible. So when I came in here, I was still thinking if I mean what kind of stories I want to tell, what kind of data I want to use. So I had no idea. So I explored all the things while I was in the program. So it's pretty flexible, and yeah, I mean the community here is amazing. So I mean that was just another good thing.
And Serby, you didn't have any experience in journalism before,
No,
right?
no, I didn't have any
Daryl
professional.
was a journalist, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I learned everything when I came here, and everyone was really helpful.
This has been great advice. And so we have a few minutes. If people have questions who are, in attendance, the way we'll do that is if you have questions, please write them in the chat section of Zoom. You can direct them to me, the host, Ross, and I can ask as many are kind of as are pertinent to this conversation. Of course, if you have specific admissions, financial aid things, we'll have sessions up on that. But if it's about these two programs, please feel welcome to put some questions in there. And while we wait, I was going to ask a question of Soma, if Soma's internet's good, is about we had an investigative specialization webinar yesterday, and sometimes people are curious about kind of the differences between the Stabile investigative program and the data program in terms of if you want to do maybe investigative work with data, what kind of things might be possible in this program, and how might that differ?
Honestly, there is a lot of overlap in terms of
Oh, a little lag there. Uh, oh, yeah, his
Oh,
face is frozen, unfortunately. But Dhrumil, do you have anything
yeah,
you
I
can
can.
add about that?
Yeah,
all of that extra experience.
oh, there is.
Yeah,
We lost your whole answer, but that's okay. I can. Do you want me to just answer on your behalf?
yeah,
Okay.
Dhrumil, why don't we go with
Uh,
you?
yeah. There's a lot of overlap. I'm currently teaching a class called Data and Investigative. So reporting two is your data and investigative journalism class. There are a lot of sort of investigations that start with computation, and you definitely get a lot of exposure to that. The difference is the Stabile program is 100% investigative journalism. So like you do that basically all the time. I would say Stabile is like investigation with a taste of data, and data is data with a taste of investigation.
Great. That's really helpful. I have a question here in the chat about let's see, about the program for the MS in data journalism. Do you encourage applicants to include data viz kind of in their work samples for the application? Maybe I'll ask Drumel since we know your connection's a little more reliable at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I think there is no prior requirement for data viz or anything like that. So we would welcome whatever work you think is most give us your best work, whatever that happens to be. And if you've experimented with data and you don't think that's your best work, but you just want to show that, like, hey, look, I've experimented with some data stuff before, that's also fine. So I would say if you have data, like a visualization thing you want to share, then go ahead. If you don't, it's not going to count against you.
Mhm. Great. And a question here, we talked about careers for a bit already, but I guess maybe I'll ask Daryl or Serby, can you talk a little bit about the career development staff beyond kind of our faculty here who are really helpful for career, talking, but in terms of what the career development office can offer students in terms of networking opportunities or kind of advice for applying for opportunities?
I think they've been immensely helpful. There were a lot of sessions where alumni were coming and they were talking to us. They were sharing their tips, like how they applied, how they navigated the interviews and everything. So that was quite helpful.
Yeah, Daryl, did you have any experiences with the career team too?
Yeah, so the first job right after graduation was one of the like Columbia exclusive fellowships. So it's with the BBC. So there's definitely those opportunities with Columbia where there's some partnerships that offer positions exclusively just to Columbia, and that was helpful.
Yeah. And on that front, I would say in the dual degree program, you have access to two career services, right? So the CS one and the journalism one. And then thirdly, I am also a little mini career services because if you're trying to get a hold of like the one statistician that works on like public opinion polling at the New York Times, neither career services will know that person, but we definitely will within like our computational journalism circle. So you kind of have a lot of resources for career services in the dual degree program.
Mhm. And I have a question, I think, for Dhrumil about the dual program. Probably can't get into like every, potential, course option, but they're just curious in terms of like kind of generally when you have choices in the curriculum, both in the engineering department, or the CS department and here, like when
Yeah.
you have choices, what are some of the things you might be able to choose from in terms of classes and skill sets you want to get?
Yeah, so in the journalism school, you'll have things like audio, video, podcast, journalism of ideas, like these kinds of. You may also have subject-specific stuff. So I want to do science reporting, I want to do health reporting, I want to do tech reporting, I want to, like those sorts of sort of subject-specific things, and then also medium-specific things, right? So like investigative or podcast or audio or things like that. On the CS side, you may take basically anything you'd expect at a computer science program, right? So like natural language processing, data and databases, networking, cybersecurity, uh, 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 what am I blanking on this? Like image processing classes, tons and tons of AI stuff. I'll add that like if you suppose that you're taking a class in the CS department that is image processing class that's project based, and you're like, wait, I would love to analyze, you know, uh, wildfires in California because there's a student who published a piece at NPR while she was here using her satellite imagery to analyze wildfires in California, right? And so like you may have journalistic project ideas that if your CS professor agrees, I can be like a secondary advisor and we'll say, instead of using a dummy data set, why don't we use a real journalistic data set and produce like an actual story out of it? Surby might have a few more thoughts on like what are the kinds of electives you took over at CS.
Yeah, so in CS, there are like I think 4 or 5 core courses. Within that, also you have choices that you have to complete, and then you have electives. I focus mostly on machine learning and deep learning, so most of my courses were aligned in that sense. But there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of choices. You would actually be confused a lot of times because there are so many choices.
Mhm. Cool. And I think there's an elective, that seminar in production in one of your semesters in the journalism school. What did you choose to do for that?
Yeah, so I took data visualization with Mark. It was again one of the very good courses that I took at journalism school.
Mhm. Great, thanks. And a question, I think this is one I can probably answer, but someone's asking if they have investigative experience, but they don't have data or computational background, could they apply to these programs? I think in that case, definitely the MS in data journalism could be considered because that doesn't require the background in data or computation. But the dual program, if you don't have any computation at all, then I would say, yeah, focus on the data program as a potential way to get the training you're looking for. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I think we're gonna wind down the program, but I will put in the chat a link to our, other events that we're gonna be having about admissions financial aid, other program events we'll be doing too. So please join us for that. And you can always reach out again to our office at apply.journalism@columbia.edu for any, nitty-gritty questions about your particular application or questions about programs that might be the right fit. So we're always happy to do all of those conversations by, just reaching out to us at that email address in the future. But I'd like to thank Professor Jonathan Soma for staying up late in Japan and joining us today. Professor Dhrumil Mehta, Daryl, and Serbi for all of your great insights into these two, amazing cutting edge programs at the school. And for everyone else, thank you for such great questions and for tuning in on this Friday. And we hope to see you at some more events very soon. Have a great weekend and take care. Bye, everybody.